How does it all work out in practice when all the stresses are on, when it counts? The more pitfalls you get used to being blooded under, being tested under, discovering how you hold up under all the pressure as much as possible, and all the stressors coming on many different layers. He has to get used to it, and he has to work quickly and effectively through all the stressors and all the pressure to run away from the natural and unnatural stressors in a situation is to run away from your destiny, is to not know how to apprehend your destiny. There's competition out there, and it's predominantly unfair competition. This is where the real assessment must begin. What is the individual social performer when he starts out? Prior to the test, he's just one of the herd. And the only thing we have to distinguish one herd member from another is the phenotype, the observables, the temperament, and the behaviors in the situation, here and now. As the situation, as the crisis progresses, and every situation is a crisis. It's a problem to be solved, a life problem to be solved with whatever you have to work with at the time. It's not a perfect solution. It's a temporary solution that raises more problems and asks more questions continuously. There's no right or wrong that stands above the situation and the individuals performing, the social performers, the social actors in the situation, as looked upon from a distance, as observed by a neutral, objective, and subjective third party. Of course, this is a mythical third party, but it's that third party that we are discussing. And what is that third party? It's existence. What is existence? Nothing but the performers in crisis, in situation. The quote-unquote neighbors, the quote-unquote friends, struggling against each other covertly and overtly, directly, indirectly, for a goal. Winner take all. Loser take a consolation that you invented. Winner, loser take a worthless consolation. But loser, take a lesson. It was a lesson learned. It was a lesson that informed his practice. It was a lesson that showed him to himself. Everything has to be done quickly, alertly, positively. By positive, it's not opposing a positive to a negative. By positive, I mean purposefully, committed. But you got to know what you're doing. You have to have sized up the situation with as much accuracy, practical accuracy as you possibly can. The better the preparation, the better the training, the more likely, and it's all a probability, no guarantees. Results may vary. It's a probability that you have a somewhat successful outcome. A lot of that successful outcome, of course, depends upon things that are beyond your control. Your phenotype, your temperament, your height is a big factor. Your moon face. These are the givens that you have to work with. What I'm saying here is actors are not equal. It's not fair. Some have an advantage genetically over others. It's your job to step back, consider it, know your limitations, look yourself well in the mirror, and know what you see there in the broad daylight. Listen to yourself very carefully and accurately. Monitor yourself. Ask yourself a lot of tough, hard questions as the crisis continues. What is the crisis? Your interaction with your fellow social performer in a situation vying for some goal that he wants too. You're in competition. It's bad enough, the stressors, the natural stresses that you will find out there predicated on your height, your phenotype, your temperament, your behavior, your appearance, your material backup. The givens. But then you put pressure on yourself with unrealistic expectations, with all the phoniness that we carry with us in our behaviors, in our attitudes, in our self-appraisals. I'm thinking through all of this. I call all of this resistance to the goal. You have to break them down one at a time, and then it doesn't end there. There's the monkey in the corner of your mind that hides there. The monkey is your past conditionings, your judgments that you, and particularly the situations, the encounters that you ran and hid from because you didn't want to face up to the consequences. The consequences are when you choose to act in a situation, you and you alone are responsible for your consequences, intended and unintended, the aftermath, the judgments, the mockeries, the stereotypes, the hesitations, the fears, the anxieties, the intimidation potential, all of it in continuous tension under the most severe stressors here and now possible. It's not a game. It's a deadly reality. And I am expanding the definition of that reality that has to be faced. If there was a place to run and hide, a rock to crawl under, to avoid all this, I'd scream it from the top of the mountain, from the top of a mountain. I'd yell it and scream it. But even there, the reality of yourself is going to chase you down. How do I adjust to myself? How do I know myself? Does the self even exist outside of the acts, outside of the decisions, the commitments, the situation, the confrontation, winners and losers, the judgment of the here and now and situation. The tensions. If the analysis foregoes the tensions, the stressors, and the pressures, it's worthless. You're talking about a fantasy, you're talking about a fairy tale, you're talking Pollyanna. I'm talking balls to the wall, tough, cold, hard reality. Whatever you do, you'll always get a judgment. And I'm not talking about bringing some a priori standards of right and wrong, good or bad. Eternal behavioral verities from their lofty hiding place, you can figure out what I ought to be doing. If I'm doing right. Now go ahead. You'll hear Dr. Laura Schlesinger. Go ahead. Now take and do the right thing. Fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. That's presuming everybody has an equal shot at it. Everybody can be equally judged, condoned, or condemned by those eternal verity criteria. We know that's bullshit. We're not equal. Height, phenotype, temperament, appearance, material backup, and so on and so forth. To find out who you are, you have to crawl through 500 yards of pure shit to forge your identity and sustain it in a hot crucible. The difference I'm doing between a Dr. Laura, for a case in point, or a preacher, a sermon, who knows the answer before the event. I am keeping the tensions, the dynamisms, the actualities, the stressors built into the analysis. They never go away. You have to put more and more practical and realistic and objective and street smart reality into your critical thinking. Who am I? What am I? How, not should, not ought, but how must I behave given all my limitations? I've already done the critical analysis. I've already done the preparation, the anticipation, the correct anticipation, the projection into the situation. I forget myself and find out what the need of the situation is and how I can get the most advantage for myself out of it. The greed principle, what's in it for me? The fundamental principle of the law of survival. The Darwinian law of survival of the fittest. The fittest is the one who survived. The judgment was made. Once you do everything you can do in your hot crucible, with all the tensions, pressures, and stresses on, then you have to stand back. It's just like a prize fight. Then the judges make the decision. Who are the judges? Judges are not in heaven. The judges are the ones who have the power to make the decision in the real world. Notice, I'm not saying their decision's right. It doesn't have to be right. It's just simple, they had the power to make the decision. And the decision they made was the correct decision from the marketplace point of view. You did everything you could do. The better man won. The better man doesn't, the cream doesn't necessarily rise to the top unless the cream is well packaged and well sold and well marketed. It won't rise to the top. The better man is not the man who's better by being the best cream out of all the cream in the competition, but the one who the judges that have the power said was the best. And that's going to be, again, be determined by the marketplace and the bottom line to all of this, to everything I'm saying, the bottom line. You can't get away from it. Run and hide as you must and as you will, depending on how prepared and how realistic you are. It's either you must or you will. If you can't will because you're not prepared, because you're a coward, because you're intimidatable, then you'll do what you must do. Then they'll decide what you do. The winner is the one who is in power, says the winner is. Period. There's no court of appeal from that. That's why you run to your preacher. You run to your self-success gurus like a Tony Robbins for your eternal answers that you can count on, that you can rely on and take to the bank. Bullshit. None of that exists. Never trust what anybody tells you. Never trust the promise to perform unless you have leverage on the son of a bitch. Ask yourself a lot of tough, hard questions. And those questions have to be continuously asked in a crucible while the stresses are on. I can't wait all day for those answers, man. It has to be done quickly. You have to learn to think quickly, critically, and then come up with something you can be committed to and go for it, big time. But you can't be a damn fool if you see it's going south, and you have to pick that up very quickly. Do it to him. Bring it to him before he brings it to you, is what I'm saying. You have to anticipate. You have to know where the some bitch is going and beat him at the chase. Get there at the chase ahead of him. How can I do this? I sized him up correctly. He sized me up. Now I sized the son bitch up right back. And I got to the chase before him. It's as simple as that. I came in knowing the street smart practical elements that it would take for me to be effective in the dog down competition, predicated always on the greed principle. What's in it for me? Where's my leverage at? How can I come in with as much strength as possible and take the respect, not ask for it? I take the respect because I'm better prepared, because I've done better anticipation, because I've looked far down the road, because I haven't been married to any particular outcome. I don't know I'm going to be surprised by the outcome. I'm working on the details that are happening right here and right now that need to be paid attention to given the stresses that are on me, the pressures, particularly my height, my phenotype. That's what I look like to the other, from the other's point of view. It's what I have to work with. And I have to be very, very realistic about that. I have to look at those Don Quixote mirrors, the knights of the mirrors that surround the fool Don Quixote, the old man, the old senile man, who's impotent and weak and frail and senile, but thinks he's on the quest to right the wrongs of the world. But what he doesn't realize, Don Quixote, in his quest, is right and wrong exists on the continuum. There's no point where it was wrong and then suddenly it becomes right. It was wrong and right from the start. They're all right and they're all wrong. Deal with it. You have to fight your way through those contradictions and paradoxes to earn a subjectivity that's always on trial. The trial never ends. Even when you die, the trial still doesn't end. You got an epitaph. You got people who remember you now and now have complete control of your meaning, of who you are, who you were. They made it up. Doesn't matter. You're not there to answer back. And that's what dying is. When you let some son of a bitch intimidate you, verbal abuse, that's dying, man. There's no way to get around that. That's dying. Why would you let some other social piece of shit tell you, determine who you are, predicated on your behavior, your intimidatability, and how the bum sized you up? What is that? Then you go into a corner and you flip on your Tony Bennett. When is it my chance? And he'll tell you, when is it my chance? When is it my dance? When do the bells they ring out for me? When do the songs they sing for me? What a bunch of bullshit. What a bunch of bullshit.